do I need a mic or anything for this?
Nope, you're good.
Okay, great. All right, super. Thanks for coming early, and hopefully I can give us some tips on the way I do this particular fly. This one is the Guide's Choice hare's ear fly, and in being honest, I haven't fished this one myself, but I fished the traditional hare's ear fly. So, this particular hook I'm using tonight, it's a nymph hook, size 10, and I have a small bead that I already slapped on there. And to get started, we put just a little bit of lead wraps on here. And your choice, whether you want to put a little bit of Zap-A-Gap up here on the hook shank, or just move them into place, move the lead wraps into place and hold it up with a wire. You can push this into the back of the bead and get everything centered up. And we're all set. You could tie this with a neutral color thread, a tan thread, and then at the end, to put the hot spot in, you need to switch. And in practicing doing this, using the orange thread, I found that in the dubbing I can cover it up and it doesn't show through. So you're still going to be in good shape. And then you don't have to switch threads at the end. So you can move this back to about the hook point, take off your excess. Then you take your hare's mask. We're going to grab a and when you pull it off the mask itself, you have all this under fur, so you can pull that out. And if you're doing a lot of them, you could just set that aside and save it. You could use it for dubbing later. But in this case, I'll use some other dubbing. And once you get it down to getting all those fluff out of it, and your tail, you're looking at like a hook gap, and it's just going to extend out over the bend of the hook. It's not going to be a long tail. So come up over the top and kind of get yourself situated. Take a look and see if you're happy where it is, and then go ahead and bind it down. Now we need to put our wire in. With your wire, you don't normally want to use your good scissors for this, but if you run it all the way in deep in the V, you're probably not going to create an issue with your scissors. Put the sun on the far side of the hook. Take it back to where your material's tied in. And if you've got a piece long enough, no, not quite. You can't get it in the material clip. So next we're going to dub our body. And I have some hare's ear dubbing here. And what I like to do is put a little bit of wax on the thread, and then I'm going to just kind of touch the dubbing to the thread. That's So go along. And you can start to work it to develop your noodle. And then as we get a little farther along, we'll add a bit more so we can get that taper in the body as we... I like to hold the tail just so I don't spin it around. Work your thread back till you get that first wrap right at the back of the hook. You can bring this right up to where the thorax is going to be, and then you won't have a drop off and a gap between your body and your thorax, because you can certainly wrap over it. That won't be a problem. Okay, next the wire. And I just got in a habit of counter wrapping everything. You could go the other way. Space your turns out evenly. Get up to the front, a couple thread wraps over it. Hold it snug, you can helicopter the wire off. We're good to go. Okay, next, we want to tie in our strip of flash material. And we want this to be right on top of the hook, so be careful to take the effort to get it centered up. You can wrap back. You're going to end up with your thorax part of the fly is going to be about 1/3 of your overall fly. Next, we need our peacock roll. And we pull out 4 or 5 strips. You come back about 1 inch plus and cut off those tips. Tie it right in on top of the hook shank, back to where your thorax starts. Okay, I'm sure some of you have done this before. You can just leave your thread hanging here, and as you come around, the thread will hold this peacock curl together for you and give you a chance to wrap it on there nicely. With a bit of persuasion, you can do it without the thread holding it in place, but it's just seems a whole lot easier. Cut that off. And when you bring this forward, we want it centered up right on top. Check it and see if you're happy where it's located. Now bend it back and then take a couple wraps over it just to secure it so it doesn't slide out on you. And you can Flip that off. Next, we need to go to partridge skin. Select yourself a feather which is going to be adequate for your hackle. Take it and pull your fluff off the bottom. Now at that point you can go to the tip of the feather, start to pull back the other barbs, then that little tip at the front, you can just clip it back a bit, leave yourself something that you can tie in, holding that in place with the feather, the dull side of the feather cupped down over top of your hook shank. Hopefully it stays put. Take your hackle pliers, hold it up straight and kind of preen the barbs back. And then as you come around, don't pull too tight, it's rather delicate. And if you get a turn and a half to 2, that's plenty. Come over the top with a couple of turns. Carefully snip off the stem there. Pull the material back, create your collar. Take a look and see if you're happy with what you got. And then you can go ahead and do your whip finish. Come and get that half there. Check and see what you got doing.
Dave?
Yeah.
What does the partridge represent in the natural? Is it a wing or what is it?
It'll probably be more into like legs.
Legs?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then what you want to do at the end is go ahead and take your glue, head cement, whatever you're using, and we'll put a little dab right on here. And she's all done. There's nothing else that you need to do at this point. Just let it dry and it's good to go.
Dave, what's different about this fly from a traditional hare's ear?
Yeah, on this one it's got the hot spot, the flashback, rather than using like a turkey quill to make your backing over the. At that point, it wouldn't be peacock curl; it'd be more of the rabbit dubbing in there, and then have the turkey quill come over and tie it off. And this one here has the flash in the top, and then also has the partridge feather to give it that soft hackle look. Anybody else have any other questions I might be
How do you
able to
fish
answer?
that?
Have you ever, if people vary the color of the thread or the color of the bead as well?
Yeah, the first one I tied, I used a black bead, and I thought it looked pretty nice. Where I found this pattern, they called for using a gold bead. So I figured, well, okay, I'll use the gold bead, but I like the looks of it with the black bead. I think it looks pretty nice. And then, like I said, you can tie up your body using a tan thread, a neutral color, and when you get to the end, tie it off, and then come in with your hot pink thread or orange thread rather, and do your hot spot just in behind the bead there.
That fly looks like it can do a bit of everything, but I wonder, do you like it as a nymph, or do you like to swing it like a soft tackle, or? It's a bit of a jack of all
Like
trades.
if I was to fish this, I'd be kind of like across and down, let it flow in the river, and or you could, depending if there's some runs that you could get close enough to, you could high stick it through that run, or you could use it. I'm not sure how. I'm sure it would work okay under an indicator, but usually
like it for the
with
soft
nymphs.
tackle?
I'm sorry.
You like it for the soft tackle and the swing, it sounds like.
Yeah. I use a lot of soft tackles, and I prefer to swing them in the current, and or even to the point where you may fish a section and you could strip it back slowly, and then pause, and then a bit more, and you should get some good action out of it, I would hope.
Yeah. Looks it.
Dave, how do you decide how long the barbules of the partridge feather?
Oh, how long?
Yeah.
Yeah, on this, they say that you could have them come back to like the back of the hook. It's kind of, kind of a personal preference, I guess, however you like to do it. I've tied some that were shorter, and I thought they looked kind of ugly. And so then I went choosing, I had another partridge skin that was an older skin. I'd pretty much taken off the good feathers for something like this, and then I was messing around using shorter feathers, and I didn't think they looked that well. So then I got the new skin, and now using longer feathers, and my understanding is, if they come back, if you can see that if I hold it, they come back like the length of the hook shank, and they say that's fine. And it could be a personal preference, whatever works good for you, or however you particularly like the looks of it. But I do like the idea of the black bead as opposed to the gold one. I just went by what they suggested it should be. Any other questions on that one, or, yeah?
What's the hook size range?
On this, they're suggesting, where are we, 10 to 16. Yeah, so to demonstrate, it's probably easier to use like a 10 or 12 because everybody can see it a little better. But yeah, you could tie this down into a smaller size, and obviously you have to downsize your bead to match your hook. And in the smaller side, I bet you look outstanding with the black bead as opposed to the gold. You seem to think the flash and dash is a big deal, but I don't know. I think the bug itself is, and you got the hot spot there, so you should be in pretty good shape.
Dave?
Yeah.
Do you ever tie any nymphs with, rather than a hot spot, like a pink bead or a?
Yeah. Not so much in this style, but using like a jig style hook with a different colored bead, and yeah, especially like pinks, and maybe into, you could have, depending what you're tying, whites, and even like a peach color. They'd all I'm sure it'll all work fine.
Hey Dave,
Yeah,
I noticed that you also added some lead wraps
Yeah.
behind the bead as well.
yeah,
Now,
it's
the-
on the
what is-
shank behind the bead, and then I shoved it up into the bead, so that kind of gets everything centered up.
Is that because of your materials being more buoyant, or why wouldn't a tungsten bead sink it anyway?
Yeah, now this isn't a tungsten bead, but yeah, you're right. You could skip putting on the lead wraps, and depending on the size of hook you're tying, obviously if you get down into 14s and 16s, and I don't know if you want to push it any smaller than that, trying to put it all together, but yeah, certainly the tungsten bead would be plenty. You wouldn't need the lead wraps.
It's a big fluffy fly. Yeah.
Captures
Okay, the next one is one that's,
Dave, can we pass that one around?
sure, yeah. Let's see here, we'll do it this way. So, thank you. We'll get set up for the next one here. Just a little side story. It was a number of years ago. I was tying at Cabela's on a Saturday morning. It was in the summertime, and a young couple come through. They kind of looked like high school age, or maybe into early years of college, and they were come by and saw what we're doing, and kind of inquisitive about well, we got feathers from birds, we got fur from animals, and different materials. And then I held this up and I said, yeah, we got the Easter Bunny. She got all upset. So that bit didn't go over too well. Okay, the next one is the black Goudreau fly. And this one works really well as a warm water fly. And when we first started with our third Tuesday class out at Cabela's, this was one of the first ones that we tied that first night back in June of 2001. And let's see, I got one here. I can put in the vise just to give you an idea what it looks like. You can, when I originally tied this, I went off the description on the website, and they were doing them in like 12s and 14s. It worked like a charm. The tough part was having it that small, and the bluegills would suck it right in. Then you spend most of your time with your forceps trying to get it out. So I've also caught bass on this, and come to the idea that it might be better just to go ahead and tie it on a larger hook. Bluegill have a great imagination. They think they can devour just about ping pong balls, whatever they think they can get in their mouth. So with that in mind, I started tying them on 10s. And here again, it's a scud style hook. Yeah, the first time I tied this up and tried it and went out, and it was a combination of good luck, good spot, everything came together at the right time. And I had 2 flies I took with me, and it was nonstop action with the bluegills. That particular day I got a lot of a lot of fish. In about 90 minutes, I had over 50 fish. So I figured, uh-oh, this looks like it's pretty good. And so then I tied up some more. Okay, the first thing we want to do, just start our thread here behind the eye. I'm going to go ahead and put the bead chain on. And then depending on the size of hook that you're tying on, you can change the size of the eyes to fit. Obviously, if you were doing it in a smaller size, that 14, 16, you want to get down to in smaller eyes. These are medium. And if you were to tie this in a bigger size, you could also use large eyes. These are mounted right up fairly close behind the eye of the hook. You take some ramps to get things and take a peek and see if you're happy that it's centered up there. Hold it in place. Add a few more ramps each way. Then I go over the hook shank, underneath the dumbbell eyes, across the top of the hook shank, underneath the other side, and around. And then, so what you can do, you can see I can pull on this, and I'm actually moving the hook in the vise, so you can snug this down pretty good. This is 6/0 thread if you're wondering what thread I'm using. And then when you're satisfied that you've got that anchored down pretty good, take your thread back, and I go back to about the hook point. Now, we need some hackle bars for a tail.
Shows like a different color when it's hacked in real life.
Oh, that's interesting.
Fifth or something.
Yeah,
And here again, your tail will be about shank length long. You get that measured out, and then you can transfer it. Tie it in there. Make sure you got it where you want it. Go back to where you're about even with the hook barb. And then you can come back forward and tie that down. It'll just help with the body. Okay, now we want to take a hackle feather that we're going to wrap here in a moment or two. If the one nice thing about this fly, if you're struggling trying to find a feather which will match the size of the hook you're dealing with, don't worry about using one that's bigger, because you can trim this down at the end by angling your scissors from the top towards the tail, and the same on the side, just angle it back. So if you're stuck with longer hackle, don't be discouraged. Go ahead and use it, and you can trim it down later. And if it works out that you have something that's in the size range that looks proper, then you're good to go. And we're going to tie this in right at the back. Run our thread forward, get it well tied down there. Back again. And we need our peacock curl again for the underbody. Three or four strands will do it to build it up. Get things lined up. Take your tips, cut them off square. Just lay them in on top of the hook shank and wind your thread back, and it kind of builds up the body a bit. And doing the same thing again going forward, you can leave your thread to hold your hurl in a group. You could put a bit of glue on your hook shank to help strengthen the hurl. You can also make yourself a dubbing loop, run the hurl down and wrap it with the thread to strengthen things up. Come in here carefully, get your thread out of the way, snip this off. Now we can go ahead and wrap our hackle forward. Be careful of the hook point because it's pretty sharp and it'll cut through this stuff in a jiffy. If you can get this looking really buggy, even if some of these turns rather are fairly close together, and after you're sure you got it tied in good, you can bring your thread up to the front here and put some hat pitches on. Whoop. A malfunction.
Dave, if you could move your head just a couple inches to the left, yeah.
Like that? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, there we go. Come here with your scissors and just... Now when you're looking at it, if you think you could leave the hackle and try it the way it is, or if you feel that it's a little too long, that's not a problem. We just come in, like I said, on an angle from the front and trim it down. And you're all set.
Would you normally fish this as a streamer, or would you fish it as a nymph?
I have. I fished it just by casting it out and stripping it back, and had real good success that way. You could also, this one's small enough you could stick it under an indicator and fish it that way. A lot of times, just fishing in the ponds near where I live, I just like to fish it by casting it out and stripping it back, and having success that way. I can pass this one around if that beater comes. Okay, there we are. I'll get that. And I can send the next one around. You can take a look at it. Thank you. Any question on this particular fly? Like I say, when Dan started the third Tuesday of the month classes out at Cabela's, and then this was one of the first ones that we tied that night. And yeah.
It catches fish.
I'm sorry, what?
It catches fish.
Oh, for sure, yeah, yeah. It's the funniest little thing. Looks so innocent, but oh, I tell you, it's a fish catcher. There again, you can tie it in different sizes. You know, when I first saw the fly on YouTube, they were tying it like in 14s and 16s. And I did that. The only snag was that in getting the bluegill, they just suck it right in. And now you spend a lot of time trying to use your forceps to get it out of their mouth. So by tying it a little bigger, they'll still take it, but a lot of times they won't suck it all the way in. Anyone else got any questions on either one of those that I might be able to come up with a good answer?
Dave,
Yeah.
what size are you, now, do you tie that just in one size, the boudreaux?
No, I've done a variety of sizes. I did 14s and 16s to start with, and that's when the first time I tried it, and I got a lot of fish, but then I also spent a lot of time using forceps trying to get the thing out of their mouth. So then I went back and tied it in larger sizes, and it still works well, but you don't spend all your time trying to get the silly hook out.
Dave,
Yeah.
I've tied a lot of these, and I tie them in larger sizes like you do.
Yeah,
But the original pattern said to trim the hackle at a 45-degree angle
Right.
from the head.
Yeah.
So it'd be longer in the back, and that makes that fly stand on its head
yeah.
in the bottom of the
Yeah,
water.
that's what I was saying, like, if you have, if you only have longer hackle, don't get discouraged, go ahead and tie it, because you're gonna hold your scissors and trim down on that angle. Just be careful of your tail, don't cut your tail off. And you can shape it up and you'll be in good shape, yeah. And I've done some where I've left the hackle without trimming it, and it still works.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just kind of a buggy looking thing that they go after, and like with this in the water, obviously this comes in at this attitude. It flips over with the bead chain being on the top.
Do you vary the colors? 'Cause
Yeah, you can. I'm trying to think what else I've done to it. I
you
think,
ever tried just all of them?
yeah. I had some hackle that was a bit of olive color. I got some nice blue hackle. Up at Southbug a few years ago, I got a dry fly hackle in a bucket raffle, and it was dyed blue. Well, when I got it out of the package, the piece of cardboard that was in the back was kind of like saturated with oil and what have you. So I got it home, and it even felt greasy. So at that time, I asked one of the fellows that was tying out at Cabela's, I said, "What do you think I should do?" He said, "Go ahead and wash it." So I did that, and did that, and did that. It's probably been washed about 7 or 8 times now. I can still get blue water. So we kind of joke about what am I going to use it for. It's really really nice dry fly hackle. The only trouble is that when they dyed it, they probably didn't do it the proper way, and it's just a mess. But the hackle itself and the barbs still look good. So maybe I'll try wash it up again, see if any more blue comes out, and if not, we'll go ahead and try put something together that I could use it. Anybody's got any other questions pertaining to those two flies?
And Dan said he ties that in a 4X hook.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
nice long profile.
Yeah, a straight shank or the scud style. I originally tied them with the straight shank, and then in doing this style, I just like the looks of it better. Now, certainly the other will work, but this just kind of looked kind of neat, just the way it was tapered off to the back as opposed to shank straight out.
It works as a good dropper too off of the streamer,
Mhm.
just about 18 inches back. They'll hit that one sometimes before they'll hit the streamer. So it's a great dropper.
Great, yeah, great little fly, yeah. And there's just enough weight to it that it's not flailing around all over the place. So even though it's a dropper, there'll be movement to it, but it's with the current, it's not going to turn it into a nightmare.
You good?
Yeah, I think so.
Sorry.
Can I help?
I think good. We're getting those distributed. We just need thread to go in. I've got 14 kids here with thread.
Okay.
To go in there.
Well, I'm not gonna distribute them